Welcome to the strange Casebook. On Christmas Eve, 1945, in the hills of Fayetteville, West Virginia, a house catches fire in the small hours of the morning. A father, a mother, and 4 of their children get out into the cold. 5 of their children do not. By dawn, the house is gone, burned flat to its stone foundation. And when the family begins to sift the ashes for the children they couldn't reach, they find something that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Nothing. No bones. No trace at all that 5 children had ever been inside.
The official story is simple. The children died in the fire, and the fire consumed them. The family never believed a word of it. For the rest of their lives, George and Jenny Sodder held to one certainty, that their 5 children did not die that night, and that someone took them. Tonight, the record, not the rumors. This is the case of the Sodder children, and the fire that left nothing behind.
First, the family. George and Jenny were Italian immigrants who had built a good life, a large house, a coal-hauling business, and 10 children. On that Christmas Eve, 9 of the 10 were home. The eldest son was away, serving in the army. The younger children had begged to stay up late with their new toys. Their mother let them. It is the last ordinary decision of an ordinary night. Jenny wakes near 1 in the morning to a telephone call. A woman's voice she doesn't know asks for a name she doesn't recognize, laughs strangely in the background, and hangs up. On her way back to bed, she notices the lights are still on, the curtains open, the front door unlocked. Small wrong things she can't quite place. Not long after, she wakes again. This time, the house is on fire. George and Jenny get themselves and 4 of the children out, but 5, the youngest still upstairs, are cut off by the flames. And now the night turns from tragedy into something stranger, because every single thing George tries to reach them fails. He runs to climb to the upstairs window, but the ladder that always leaned against the house is gone. He tries to start his 2 coal trucks to drive them close and climb up, and neither will start, though both had run perfectly the day before. He sends a daughter to call the fire department, and the telephone is dead. Later, a man will admit he cut the phone line that night, believing he was only cutting the power. The ladder is eventually found, tossed down an embankment, well away from the house. The fire department does not arrive for hours. Wartime, a volunteer crew, a town spread thin. By the time anyone comes, there is nothing to come to. The house has burned to the ground in well under an hour. And then the official accounting begins, and it does not sit right. A fire is ruled accidental, faulty wiring. The 5 children are declared dead, their bodies consumed by the flames. But the parents push back and their objection is hard to dismiss. A house fire, burning for 45 minutes or so, does not usually reach the heat needed to erase 5 human beings completely. Bones survive house fires. Teeth survive. Household appliances in that very house survived. And yet, a careful search of the ashes turns up no remains of the children at all. A later excavation does recover a few small bone fragments, but when they're examined, they raise more questions than they answer, appearing to belong to someone older and possibly never part of the fire at all, perhaps carried in with fill dirt. Whatever the truth, they are not the clear proof a grieving family needed that their children had died where they were told. So the Sodders begin to gather the other strange pieces. Months before the fire, a stranger had come to the house, looked it over, and remarked ominously that it would go up in smoke one day. Another man refused a business deal, had made a darker warning. A bus driver reported seeing balls of fire thrown at the roof. And in the weeks after, sightings. Travelers who believed they had seen the children alive on the road that night, at a stopping place, in a passing car, far from a house that was supposedly their grave. George and Jenny spent the rest of their lives chasing those threads. They hired investigators. They wrote to the authorities, to the FBI, to anyone who would listen. And on the highway near their land, they raised a billboard with their children's faces and one question: what happened to them? And they kept it standing for decades so that no one passing could forget. Then, in 1968, 23 years after the fire, Jenny opened her mail to find a photograph. A young man, perhaps in his 20s, with a striking resemblance to her son Louis, who had been 9 the night he vanished. On the back, a short, cryptic message that named him. There was no return address that led anywhere. An investigator sent to follow it up was never heard from again. The Sodders enlarged that photograph and set it on the billboard beside the others. To them, it was proof. To everyone else, it was one more thing that could never quite be confirmed. George Sodder died in 1969, still certain. Jenny wore black for the rest of her life and kept the billboard lit until she died 20 years later. Their last surviving child carried the question into this century, and then she too was gone. And that is where the file rests. Not on a body, or a confession, or a grave, but on a cut telephone line, a ladder thrown into the dark, 2 trucks that wouldn't start, and an absence where 5 children should have been. The official record says they died that Christmas night. Their family went to their own graves, refusing to believe it. We cannot tell you who was right. We can only tell you that 80 years on, no one has ever found them. Until someone does, the file stays open. I'll see you at the next. If you'd like to sit with more cases like this, subscribe. The file stays open.